Okay, so we left off on a pretty big cliffhanger, and there was one huge unanswered question. Does Deku end up joining All for One? Like, what even happens there? Turns out you guys actually cared about the answer, so you guys ended up smashing the like goal of 1,000 likes. Now, if you guys want to get part 3, then you guys are actually going to be needing to smash. Let me think about it. Okay, yeah. So let's go with 750 likes. If you guys want part 3, you guys need to smash 750 likes. And once you guys do that, I'll definitely make sure to drop part 3 for you guys. And by the way, if you guys want part 3, that will be out early once again for members only. That said, enjoy.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
Okay, so jumping back into part 2, we immediately cut back with the story with Izuku looking down at the pavement floor. You know, he's outside of the UA area and he's pretty much just hyping himself up to get ready for the portion that he's about to have to take, the recommendation exam. Now, nothing crazy is actually going to be happening here, and we pretty much just get Izuku walking in and like slightly just like, you know, thinking about what it is he's about to have to do. He would put in a little application to take in a weapon, seeing as he doesn't actually have a quirk, and the only people who really know that are just a select few. So he is allowed to bring in a support item scythe, mind you, and he would go inside and pretty much begin wreaking havoc on the exam. Now, what does the exam consist of? Well, from what we've seen from the flashbacks that we've gotten from either Todoroki or Momo and or Inasa, we've seen that it either consists of a race and potentially a robot portion where they have to try to compete against a 3, a 2, and a 1-pointer just to see how exactly they would handle the situation. I definitely think there is a written portion, and I definitely think that there's probably something else like a quirk kind of like assessment thing where like they try to see how good your control is with your quirk or something. And that's pretty much what Izuku is going to have to do. Now, these exams are a bit more private than the normal ones, so when it comes to the exam, Izuku ends up coming in about 3rd place when it comes to out of the entire score that he could have gotten. And once he leaves the area, people begin to question him, like, you know, what place did you get? And Izuku, he's just like, oh, I got 3rd place in the recommendation exams, right? Now, one of the people who was there was actually a reporter, and this reporter took that statement that Izuku just made and ran with it. She immediately went on to her little like airing podcasting majigger and just pretty much proceeded to like slap that on an article and just publish it immediately. That ended up going viral, and from there people started to talk about how overhyped the son of All Might is, talking about just how weak he is compared to his old man, and pretty much just bringing comparisons between himself and All Might left and right, calling him the biggest failure ever, and that Todoroki, the son of the number 2 hero, is most definitely going to be something that they should be looking out for, and not the son of All Might, seeing as he's clearly not the same as his father, right? Now, once Izuku hears this and catches wind of all this article and stuff like that, this would be the final nail in the coffin, which would cause Izuku to call back All for One and essentially tell him that he's in. Call would go something like this. Beep, 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 beep. You know, he's typing in this stuff. I'm sorry. Whenever I think of somebody calling somebody, I picture like the big phone that had like the big buttons on it and like just like him having to click on it and then like, you know what I mean? And that's pretty much kind of what happens, but not really, seeing as he has a smartphone. But he does end up reaching back out to All for One, and immediately, you know, the call answers. He's like, and All for One answers, and he has like this deep voice, and he just goes on to say, so do you accept? From here, Izuku says, I'm all in. And from here, All for One smiles, saying, perfect, meet me here and here. And from here, Izuku would go to the location that All for One specified, going on to essentially be picked up by Kurogiri and teleported straight to All for One. It's here where All for One would break down what exactly he wants him to do, and Izuku would pretty much be completely down to do what it is that he has to now. Essentially, Izuku is going to be playing the part of the UA trader, right? Now, in the original, the person who does that is Yugi Aoyama, right? But This time around, we don't need him as a character, so he will completely be written off in exchange for the successor of One for All, somebody who is legitimately going to be kind of like the spitting image of All Might when he was young. Instead of having blonde hair, he's going to be having this like strange, he instead of having blonde hair, I think that we're going to give him like, what colored hair would be cool? Wow, that's actually kind of interesting. Like, what should we do when it comes to this brand new character? Okay, so let's just say that when it comes to this character, he's going to be having brown hair and he's going to be having these like cool multicolor like blue and red eyes. He is quirkless. However, he did work out as a pastime, seeing as he was a full-time gym rat. And so that's the way that he's actually going to be able to handle the quirk that is One for All. Now, this is essentially what would lead us into the portion of time where Izuku gets briefed down on the plan, right? And essentially the plan consists of Izuku informing them about All Might's weakness. And Izuku does it just fine. Izuku goes on to tell everybody, and by everybody I mean Shigaraki, Kurogiri and All for One, about the weakness of his father All Might. And that weakness would be his side. He has like a gaping wound. Once they find out about this, Izuku would kind of be wondering if he did the right thing, because it's like when he was a kid, All Might was much more around for him than he was now, but it almost seems like All Might just doesn't care for him. Like he literally was willing to trade him for some random kid that he's never met, and he literally pays way more attention to this guy than he would have ever paid attention to him, who's literally the son. So Izuku as of this current moment is just not thinking about anything but the fact that he feels betrayed, and so would go ahead with the plan. Eventually, this would lead him to make his way towards the classroom of 1A, and he would eventually sit down only to be interrupted when a couple of other people walk inside, and finally the blue-haired boy would end up walking in, going over towards Bakugo's direction and proceeding to be absolutely annoying, just beginning to completely try to berate Bakugo and tell him that he needs to take his feet off the desk, right? Now, it's at this moment that the successor to All Might would walk into the classroom, and when Izuku sees him, he just kind of grits his teeth, because like Izuku knows that he was way better built for One for All than this kid ever was. Izuku had trained his entire life, so if he would have inherited it, he probably could have gotten the full 100% maximum usage rate out of the quirk. But because this guy's there, he'll never get to know what that feels like. And this enrages Izuku like no other. This makes him so incredibly frustrated, and eventually Izuku would just kind of begin to slightly start showing it. His demeanor begins to immediately change, and the only person who would seem to actually catch wind of this would be Aizawa. It's at this moment that we would pretty much have Aizawa wake up and begin to essentially tell all of the students about the situation in terms of get these on and meet me outside. Now, everybody goes on and does so, and from here, Bakugo would be tossed a ball, to which he would throw it and get about 700 and something meters, right? Following this, Kirishima, Mina, and a bunch of other people would begin to excitedly say that this is fun. And as soon as that comes out of their mouth, Aizawa immediately goes on to threaten them with expulsion, saying that whoever comes in last place is, well, gonna get expelled. And following this, everybody finally snaps into reality, with Izuku even having a bit of worries in his mind. Because yeah, whatever, he's the son of All Might, he's very well trained when it comes to his physical body, but he still doesn't have a quirk. And so this would lead Izuku to barely even scratch at the top 5. One person who definitely took notice of this would be Bakugo, and Bakugo would be the first to point out how much of a disappointment Izuku is. Now, obviously we know Bakugo and Izuku have never formally interacted yet, just because of the nature of the story, but Bakugo, with his, very, how do I put this, vibrant personality, would definitely be willing to come in and speak his truth. And what is his truth? Well, it's just that he doesn't think that Izuku should even be called the son of the #1 hero, the son of the #1 hero, All Might. So Bakugo pretty much blatantly says that to Izuku, and while Izuku, yeah, he's heard the things on the media, but he's never physically had somebody go up to him and straight up just say that, you know, he is not living up to his expectations, pretty much calling him a failure. And Bakugo would literally use that same wording. He would call Izuku a blatant failure. Izuku, after hearing this, would grit his teeth and his ball of his fist up as tight as possible. And just thinking about what he has to do now, he's able to basically slightly calm down. Now, is he able to just immediately just calm himself down? Absolutely not. But he would be able to hold his temper just long enough for, you know, Aizawa to essentially separate both himself and Bakugo from the equation. Now, once this happens, Izuku just grabs his stuff and makes his way towards home, right? And once he's there, he would pretty much end up just kind of going on his phone and sending a couple messages back to All for One, saying that there is somebody on their hit list now. And that person is Katsuki Bakugo of Class 1A. Now you guys might be like, why is Izuku going to that length just because somebody talks some trash? We'll put it like this. Imagine that for years, everybody could talk trash to you, right? You just like wake up, so much trash talk all over the place, right? And it's all through the screen of a phone. So what are you going to do? Like, you're not going to go beat these people up. If you try to, you would never end. But finally, the day comes where somebody says that to you face to face. And in a sense, I guess you could say that all of those frustrated feelings that you feel for everybody else would finally have somebody to pretty much manifest themselves in real life. So this would kind of give you the opportunity to finally like do something with all those other times that you wanted to do something yourself. And this is kind of the situation that we're going to be finding ourselves in with this dilemma that is actually going on right now. And so Izuku makes the quick call, and the situation is essentially going to be taken care of by All for One, right? And so what pretty much ends up happening is about 3 days would go by, and suddenly they would all find themselves in the classroom until suddenly All Might busts through the door. Immediately, he begins just talking to everybody with a giant smile on his face. And Izuku looks towards his father with All Might, just getting praise from everybody there except for his own son, which would definitely sadden him. But what's he gonna do? Call his own son out in front of everybody and potentially make Izuku way angrier at him than he already was? I mean, for Christ's sake, All Might has finally begun to feel bad for his son, because for the first time in forever, after having his own son finally tell him the struggles that he's been through, just because he's been the son of All Might finally took notice of this and begun to scroll through the web and see all the horrible things that people have said about his son. People have genuinely literally sent him death threats because he's such a weak loser that people have said that if they were in his position, they'd be way more powerful. Having the genes of All Might by your side, they would have actually been useful, useful baby reproduction juices. I can't say the word because it's like I'm gonna get the yellow check mark, but you guys know what I mean, right? Saying that he was a waste of blank word, right? And Izuku just constantly has to hear that all the time, right? And now All Might finally understands the scale and magnitude of just what he did. Like, okay, yeah, was All Might purposefully trying to screw his son over? Absolutely not. That's not the kind of person that All Might is, and that's just not the way that I'm going to be carrying his personality. I'm not doing that just for the sake of the story. But All Might definitely was a little bit negligent to his own son and give a little bit more attention to other people that he probably shouldn't have, seeing as he has a whole son and wife at home. That said, though, we would end up getting a scene where All Might tries to get closer to Izuku and be like, hey, so how's UA so far? But Izuku just kind of brushes him off and goes over to the line with people asking him why he doesn't talk to his own dad. And Izuku wouldn't even respond. He'd say, stay out of your business. This isn't any of your business, so stay out of it. And, nobody really says anything back to Izuku because, okay, yeah, whatever, he's quirkless. He's still way stronger than any of them could ever hope to be. Let's just definitely throw that out there. He's definitely way more powerful than all of them combined. And so we would pretty much end up, well, not really, but you know what I mean? He would pretty much end up scrapping most of them except for the exception of potentially Bakugo and or Todoroki. But everybody else, they would completely get smoked by Izuku. Regardless though, we would end up jumping into the situation that is the 2v2 versus battles, and Izuku would end up drawing the lottery numbers, and he essentially ends up getting paired with, let's see, who should Izuku get paired with? I'm going to be saying that Izuku is actually going to be having to face off against Todoroki. Now, Todoroki's teammate is going to be... I think that we should make Todoroki's teammate Mineta, and that Todoroki is going to have to be the villain for this time, and Izuku's teammate is going to be Ida. Okay, Ida's going to be Izuku's teammate. I think that's fair. I think that kind of balances it out because Mineta doesn't really count as the teammate. He kind of counts as more of a hindrance, but you know, Ida, he actually kind of counts as something. But regardless though, we would end up jumping into the battle, and the way that I see this all starting is essentially All Might explaining the rules, and finally Todoroki and Mineta in the building towards the top, right? They would start there, and the way that I see this all going down is essentially Todoroki ends up freezing the entire building and just walking down expecting both of them to be frozen. However, he'd be very, very shocked when he realizes that Izuku wasn't actually frozen whatsoever. Only Ida was. And when Todoroki would turn the corner, Izuku would send a strong flying kick at the direction of Todoroki, which Todoroki wouldn't be able to dodge and would get hit straight in the face by. Followed by a quick just right hook to the face, and finally a left-handed uppercut, which Todoroki would completely eat, right? He gets sent back flying onto the ground, and Todoroki would slide on the ice before getting up quickly and forming a barrier of ice between himself and, you know, All Might's son. He opens the door to the room right next to them and then proceeds to break the wall to get on the same level where Todoroki's at, to proceed to essentially try to rush in at him again, but Todoroki just immediately stomps his foot down and says that's it, as he freezes Izuku entirely, and from here, Todoroki and the villain team are completely declared the winners. It was a one-sided stomp, and everybody just witnessed Izuku get completely outclassed by the son of the number 2 hero. Everybody after this would begin saying that it looks like the son of the number 2 hero is way stronger than the son of the number 1, with people saying that it's kind of ironic and that they would have never guessed that it'd be the case. From all the things that they've seen from him during the years, like he seemed to be so powerful around like elementary school days, but once he made it to middle school, he just kind of seemed to get like, it almost looked like he just wasn't progressing anymore. You can only get so strong in the human body with its basic capabilities, and Izuku is at that level where he just really can't do much against people like Todoroki, who have insanely overpowered quirks that could completely shut him out and keep him at a distance. Seeing as he has to fight at close range, when somebody keeps him at a distance, Izuku is pretty much just rendered useless. It's his kryptonite. And so once Izuku makes his way towards out of there, he ends up pretty much seeing that everybody is blatantly just knowing now that he's weak. And they're all beginning to question like what it is that they've heard about him their whole lives. Like they were all told that he was so strong, that he was the next upcoming, that he would be even stronger than All Might someday. But from what they're seeing, it looks like he's not anything near All Might. He's not even half of him, not even 1/4. Everybody would be thinking this, and this will just enforce Bakugo to say, just as I thought, you're so weak you couldn't even defeat Icy Hot over there. The son of the number 2 hero just kicked your ass. I'd be embarrassed if I was you. I wouldn't even dare to call myself the son of All Might. I should be his son, not some lame washed out stuff. Not some, sorry, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, not some lame washed up dumbass like you. Following this, Izuku goes on to like get in front of Bakugo's face, and immediately All Might steps in between the two of them, saying that's enough, telling Izuku to go to his office and for Bakugo to essentially not say that again, or he's going to be forced to give him detention. Izuku angrily walks towards the direction of All Might's desk, and from here, Izuku just sits down. All Might comes into the room and begins to essentially just sit down and be like, look, I know that it isn't easy for you to hear this kind of thing, but it happens to me as well. I also have to deal with the media. I also have to deal with people judging me every time I go somewhere. That's not a bad thing. You'll get used to it. Trust me, kid. And Izuku says, you don't know. You don't understand what it's like. Being your son is like living in constant hell. I'll never get rid of these people and their eyes watching my every movement. You saw the way that everybody in there treated me as soon as they saw me lose to that kid. Everybody thinks I'm beneath you, like I'm not worthy of being your son, as if being your son is some sort of forsaken title that immediately was supposed to make me strong. That wasn't it. You're not even naturally strong yourself. You'd be a weakling. You'd be even worse off than me if you didn't have that amazing quirk of yours. And All Might would just kind of sit there and not say anything, as Izuku says to hell with you. He's going home by himself and not to talk to him anymore, as All Might is just left there in the room silent, as suddenly his successor would walk close to the door, hear what just happened, and from here Izuku bump checks the kid and would pretty much just walk out of the room, as All Might would just be left there to wonder if he made the right choice. His successor steps in and asks him if he's interrupting anything, and All Might immediately perks up and says no. From here, he would say that he heard that, and he asks if he caused him trouble for giving him the quirk. All Might says that he's not going to regret it or be taking that quirk back if he thinks that that's the case, that he would never do that to him, and that he's going to be his successor, whether his own son likes it or not. From here, Izuku says there's going to be a USJ event, 3 days, bring everybody.